Talofa lava, everybody. It's so good to be back. It's Leao here from Island Girl Views. Um, I'm just so glad to be here and being able to come on the show. We're a day late, but we had some very important things to do yesterday. Maybe one of these days I might tell you all about it. But anyway, welcome and thank you for joining me tonight. And I would like to, without any further ado, introduce you Lorinda, a beautiful wahine that is going to join me tonight. We're going to have some amazing conversations, and I'd really like to see if any of you have any questions. And hi, Tina. Welcome.
Hey, kia ora, kia ora.
How are you tonight?
Oh, so good. The weather's been amazing here in Waikato recently. So, yeah, we've had a great day. School holidays. So we've got 5 our tamariki at home, which accounts for fun times. But yeah, really, really good. Thank you for having us on. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you know what? You look far too happy. What was it? Say that again.
I've got my husband sitting around the corner. That's why I said us.
Oh, you look far too happy for someone who is having school holidays. That's all I have to say about that. But this is only the first week, and we'll check on you at the end of the second week. So, Lorinda, we've had a lot of news and also a lot of conversations around what is a woman. And I just want to say I was deeply, deeply touched by the poem that you wrote, or just what you had from your heart. And I would love for you to read it. Like, I read it, and I was thinking, I'd love to hear her actually read what she wrote. So, would you be able to read it to us? But hang on. First of all, I'm just going to pray and commit our show to the Lord. Okay. So, God, thank you so much that we can come to you tonight. Thank you for this airway. Thank you for this platform. We pray tonight, God, that you would be glorified, and that the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you tonight. Thank you for Lorinda and her life and her voice. And so we pray for blessing and favor over her and her family. And we ask for your blessing tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mene.
So I'm gonna hand it over to you. I'd like you to, if you wouldn't mind, reading that to us. Is that okay? Okay. So, oops, wrong one. Hang on. Here we go. I'm gonna bring you into focus. Here we go.
He tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. A message burning in my heart for this generation. Te mana o te wahine doesn't come cheap. It's not a dress or makeup, a pronoun or an operation. We literally bleed 4,000 days of our lives for a new generation to be born. Whether it is used to give birth or not, he tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. Like many women, I've been blessed to carry children and bring them into the world. Sacrificed years of carrying life in my body and experienced hours of pain to bring them into te ao marama. He tapu tēnei whare tangata. I say again, this womb is sacred. I've fed and healed my children from my body for many years of my life. So when I say you are not woman, I am not saying you are less or I am more. I am saying he tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. I am saying this gift that we have been given is not to be taken by you or anyone. He tapu, he tapu, he tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred, sacred, sacred. And men are sacred too. They carry tāne te waiora, the seed of all mankind. It is gifted and housed in womb. And what a gift. Men are provider and protector of new life. Koira te mana o te tāne. That is the honor of a man. We can't get it twisted because of personal projection of our sexual trauma on this generation. I'm brave to speak on this, but someone has to be. Traumatic response will not raise mokopuna on my watch. He tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. And so are the wombs of wahine of the future. The world can wear what it likes, call itself what it likes, but it will never take what is sacred to woman. Koira te mana o te wahine. It is the honor I have as woman, and it is costly. He tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred.
I'm sorry, I have no words. That's so beautiful how you spoke it. It is. It's so deep. The things that you brought out in that poem, and I feel like more people need to hear you say it. And I think Elliot will say to me, "Can we use that and just use your poem, and actually put it out there?" So we may do that if you. I feel like I feel like it needs to be said by you. So I just want to thank you. I honor you for using your voice, but you speak on behalf of all of us, and I love that you have used Māori in it. And can you tell us what brought you to that when you started writing? What brought you to this? I need to write this. What was it about these? This past month.
Yeah, I was raised totally immersed in Te Ao Māori, in a beautiful village of Hokianga. Very, very close to our creator and very close to our people. And so when things are turbulent, we always reflect, and we always process that with our creator. We were taught to do that. And so I was in a process of processing what was going on in the world for my children, and conversations that my husband and I were having with our teenagers around content in their education. And I was actually I felt quite violated as a woman, and I was trying to articulate that feeling. And it was actually really beautiful and freeing for myself, the whole process of writing that kōrero, because it helped me release my frustration or my violation through a process of healing. And in that, I felt that everyone was left intact, and that there was no, we have Te Ao Māori, e hara ki te whakaiti, and it's never to diminish the mana of another person by being strong in your own mana. And so I felt for myself, I need to remind myself as a woman what my mana looks like, what my mana felt like, what it felt like to experience womanhood from a mother's perspective. And in that deep dive, I was able to articulate that firstly to my children, and to my whānau, and then my extended whānau, and then I put it out on social media. So yeah, that was where it came from. It came from a process within myself, because I was feeling mamai. I was feeling violated around changes that are being made in our nation, very, very subtly and quite indoctrinating, where it's just happening. It's happening before our eyes, and if we question any of it, we are actually attacked. So yeah, that's where it came from, and it still actually makes me quite emotional because of the depth of meaning in those kupu and those words. So yeah.
Honestly, the way you articulated it, nobody walked away from it feeling any less. I've always had a saying that, putting out somebody else's candle isn't going to make yours any brighter. And I've always said that to people who put others down. But the way that you articulated that poem, I think brought a lot of healing. And that's why, through that emotional process and actually hearing you say it, yeah, it kind of got me a little bit emotional as well, because as I was reading it, I could imagine you saying it, but I couldn't. And I thought, well, actually tonight was an incredible opportunity to bring you on the show, but also there's so much more to you than this, but this has been your process of actually expressing it. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for, being able to, um, use your God given talents that He's given you. And you're going to have to write more. I'm sorry. Not going to be your last poem. I'm just saying. but tell us what, because you've told me that we met down in Wellington last year, didn't we? And I was so interested in what you had to say about your journey, and so I'd love to hear a little bit about it because I think it's really important, such an important time, and you are definitely an Esther, born for such a time as this. So,
Mhm.
would you be able to share just with the audience because they may or may not know you very well, just a little bit about your journey and what you're actually doing at the moment?
Yeah, so my husband and I, we run a trust called Tahi Tāwhara, and we travel around equipping communities and whānau on how to establish sustainable living systems to live from the land and to restore mātauranga, specifically Indigenous mātauranga, but all mātauranga of the land, which is knowledge of the land, so that families would know how to feed themselves in these times, that communities would be set up and fully sustainable and not reliant on government systems, just to help each other out. So that's part of our mission as a whānau, and we do a lot of travel. We're currently based here in Waikato, and we're here on an iwi project in Rangiaowhia, which is not far from Hamilton. And yeah, we're just chugging along. We've got 5 kids at home. We've got 9 children altogether. And yeah, we just try to be a living example of what it looks like to thrive through adversity. And we're very passionate about our children. We're very about the values of our nation and what gets projected upon them. Um, Hence why we're having this conversation and why I'm here
Yeah,
and why voice. Yeah, and we're just very blessed to have an Indigenous vehicle to drive that through, because I was brought up immersed in Te Ao Māori, and I'm a living, breathing example of my tupuna. And yeah, that's pretty much I am. Look,
that's
later.
amazing. I I I was just thinking, these are the times that we actually have to look at sustainability. And, we've got, food shortages, we've got, you know, um, so how do people, where do they start? Where do they start to go, okay, I'm living in the city, I've only got, yeah, what do we do? Do we start a garden? All of these things that us city people, you know, are maybe not confused, but just what do we do? How do we start this process, Lorinda? How do we begin becoming sustainable in our own backyard?
We believe, well, we teach it all starts with your mindset. It all starts with um, just starting small by how you do things in your own personal life. Like living sustainably can start with the type of toilet paper you buy, or
Okay,
not most expensive, but are you thinking about when you do your kai shopping list, we actually sit down as a whānau, and we don't like to overshop. That's actually being sustainable. That's just the easy way to start. But the biggest tip we give people who want to live from the land is to connect with people who live from the land. And
right.
so every community, every city has amazing talent out there that live from the land, and they all live in their own caves and they do their own thing because they them. But they do exist, and put yourself out there and go find a network. We've got really good networks that we've built in the last few years, and they're extremely helpful in seed saving, seed sharing, knowledge sharing. It's just a really good example of how our ancestors used to live communally, where we trade resources, we would trade knowledge. There's so much to learn, and it can be overwhelming. So
Right.
our biggest tip is
Yeah.
always with people who are living the lifestyle that you desire. And YouTube is not always helpful because we don't have many New Zealand examples. And so we might be trying to replicate a lifestyle that is better suited to America.
Right.
So yeah, just connect in. Don't be afraid of hippies. They're amazing. From the they actually have so much knowledge to share, and just get out there and start mixing with those people, and you'll start to learn how to do things, and make little changes in your whānau, to be more sustainable. Yeah.
That's amazing. Tell me something. Do you homeschool your children, or are they
We
at
have
school?
Yeah, we have. At this time, we've put because we've just moved to Hamilton, and our older children want to play sport, in the city of opportunity. So we've sent them to high school, but we have homeschooled our children for years, and we're happy to do so. If anything ever changed, we know we're well equipped to do that.
Yeah.
I come from an education background, so
Wow.
I'm my kids' education. So it's good to have a plan. If COVID didn't teach us anything, it taught us how to be with our kids, and how to help them along, and what skills are most important.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of homeschooling outside of school also. All our kids know how to grow. All our kids know how
Wow.
to cook, how to have financial literacy, and shop, and those kinds of things, because that's what we prioritize as a whānau. So I suppose in every whānau, parents are homeschooling parents anyway, because you get to teach them those extra goodies that actually mean the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, what did you and your family learn over COVID, over the last two and a half years? What is sort of the highlights of actually? We've just had a revelation that actually some of the things that are out there are maybe not true. But what are some of the things that you, but as a family, have learnt?
Very interesting story. We actually got a heads up. I had a dream actually about
Really?
moving systems. Yes, prior to 2020, prior to the lockdown, and so we had already started preparing, and we were living in a semi-rural area. Wasn't really rural, but we made the big move, and so by the time lockdowns set in, we were actually well set up, and we were actually able to, through online platforms, just help a lot of people, walk them through seed saving, seed growing, cultivating from what they had, because we saw a lot of stock going out of shops quickly,
Yeah.
and we became deliverers of food, and all, like everybody did. And I actually had this moment where I was delivering food to my kaumātua, my kuia,
Yeah.
in Hoki. And it'd been, I think they had closed the roads, because our people closed the roads, and it had been about 6 weeks, and they were really hungry for veggies and fruit. And like, something wrong with this picture, because I grew up here, and we had fruit and veggies everywhere, and we grew everything, and we never went to the shops. Like, it's an hour to the local supermarket. And I was thinking, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And so we actually moved back to my hometown and started sustainable living systems there, and started networking and building garden models around Hokianga, because it was just crazy that they were living in this beautiful land of promise and soil, and desiring fruit and veggies from an hour away. So yeah, that taught us a lot. We got taught quite fast
Yes.
the solution to every problem. And it was an amazing journey. It was
Wow.
great. We learned about online platforms, and I did a million live streams, and became quite vocal about what was going on. And that's when I met you in Wellington,
Yeah.
and I spoke about sustainable living systems then. And I think everyone was there around the violation of vax and non-vax, but it was also about food sovereignty to me. It was
Yes.
It was about limiting the food that my elders get to eat. It was about limiting the access to food. It was about limiting the quality of food, and also now limiting what we can grow and how. And so um, we've developed solutions for that and just take it to any community that's hungry.
Wow.
We planted our ihu mātau just in, I think, December. We've been down to Nelson. Like, we'll go anywhere that people want to learn, and give whatever mātauranga knowledge that we have and seed connections. So, yeah.
That's amazing. I was just thinking when you were talking about that with the sustainability of that land. I went to America for to do a bit of mission work, and I went into Compton. You know where Compton is, eh? So
Oh,
Compton is yeah. So there, when we arrived there were trucks, loads of trucks that came with things like chips and Pepsi. And so everyone came with their labels. People were lined up, way sort of just down the road, waiting for people to give out these packages. As I was walking around, I was like, all of this land is barren. They haven't taught the people how to sustain and actually grow there was fields around their places. There was fields and there was nothing. And it was the big labeled companies that came with, so they had Pepsi, they had chips, they had all of the stuff that were given to them, and they all lined up. And I looked around the place and thought, this could be a thriving community where you can grow your own vegetables. And I came back home and I said, oh my gosh, look how fertile our land is here. Why are we so dependent, on things that come from a supermarket. So, I mean, I guess that's just when you start to have revelations of oh my goodness, when we asked our boys when they were growing up, where does corn come from? They said the freezer. And so we just went, and so we went to the garden and planted a whole lot of corn so that they could understand that the corn doesn't come from the freezer. So we have all of these things where everything's so convenient. How do you get away from just a life that's convenience? We pay for convenience, we pay for washed potatoes,
yeah.
and not have the joy of being able to dig up your own potatoes. What
Mm.
are your thoughts around that? Like,
Yeah, I think there's a subtle indoctrination there as well, around what success looks like, what thriving actually.
yeah,
And until you've lived it, you actually will fall for what the world will tell you what success looks like. And so I go back again to my upbringing and how blessed I was to grow up in a community where Nana Whina had set up sustainable systems for us as a community, as a hapu, that we didn't know the 9 to 5 struggle. If someone died, everyone was at the marae because we were all free to do so. I didn't understand that there was such a thing as a 9 to 5 job, because our parents were working full time on farms and gardens that belong to the hapu. So that's what thriving looks like to me. Thriving is having power over your time. Thriving is if something
wow,
goes, you don't fall to pieces because you actually have a collective support system around you. And so COVID was actually a perfect time for Māori to go back to their papakainga and relive their history like myself. But also it's a perfect time to go into urban areas and actually reteach what does that look like in a city. I'm in Hamilton and it's still possible. I can live in a city and we can go to urban areas and actually say, look, there's actually systems set up here that can support you to feed your family. And there's great examples. Even about 2 minutes up the road, there's a shared community plot where people are able to access a growing plot, and they have shared compost and they have shared water systems. And these places do exist, and it's just about getting out there and making those networks for yourself.
yeah. I think it's not going to really happen until the need really kicks in. And do you know what I mean? And I strongly believe it's not going to be until we go to the supermarket and there's going to be nothing there. Like,
Yep.
that slowly, little by little, they're making us used to long queues, and
Mm,
um, they're making us used to things that are missing in the
yep.
supermarket. So that's becoming something that we're like, maybe I need to get 20 things of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to get, and we have this greed mentality that if I don't get this, I'm going to miss out. Instead of actually starting to think the way you in your dream,
Mm,
was a long time ago. Lorinda, I had a similar dream, but it wasn't about food. It was about disasters. It was about I was way before my time because I
mm,
said to God, what do I do with this? What do I do with these disaster dreams? And that's when I was able to start workshops, preparing communities in case of a disaster. So I was contracted to civil defence to actually run these in community, but I was still but I was way before my time, and so I got really disheartened about it. But now I've come into this place where I'm like, oh my gosh, they need me to do this and to run this, and how do I now bring it to the fore? Because sometimes we go before our time, and I think you talked about this a year ago, and
mm,
everyone's still standing up about mandates and going, we don't want, we're trying to put out a fire, and there was another one that was coming, and this is why God has prepared you beforehand to come and go, we can do this. We can fight back against, what we
mm,
see, the global sort of whole sphere of wanting us to eat crickets and eat
mm,
things that are, our sovereignty belongs to us. God's given us this. And so, you having this dream and being able to now walk it out. And same with me, having opportunities now to step into emergency response is something that God's given us, and these dreams are very real, and they keep us going. Well, this is what I need to do for my family. This is how I prepared my family, and same with you. And it becomes. Tell me about heritage seeds. I know that that's something that is a quite contentious at the moment because I think they're trying to get rid of us both having gardens and heritage seeds. That's just kind of what I've heard. It may or may not be true, but
yeah, it's real and it's really
okay.
important. And because we've been all busy surviving, no one's
Yeah.
had time to grow. And so we still, like the average person is still asking what's the difference between a normal seed and a heritage seed. And so heritage seed just have the strain that has been kept by cultivating. Just for example, if you cultivate some strains of sweet corn, you have to grow at least 200 to keep the genuine strain of
Okay.
that corn.
Yeah.
So heritage seed is just seed that's been cultivated without GMOs, without sprays, and usually organic people will keep heritage seed. So our tupuna kept heritage seed. We are big advocates of heritage seed, and we are
Yay.
big advocates of sharing heritage seed, and actually not only teaching people to grow, but how to store. And so that's why we do an annual cycle when we're helping people to do a food system. It's not just about the harvest, it's actually about what do you do in the season that we're in now. Ngahuru autumn is when we store our seed, we pickle our food, we ferment our food, there's these phases of food keeping so that we're actually having a level sustainable storehouse. And so
Yeah.
heritage seed is very vital. It's actually started happening about 6 years ago, where it became unavailable on store shelves. You needed to go through organisations like King Seeds or Koanga, another really good one. Unfortunately, one of their bases were in Wairua, but I
Oh, right. Yeah.
visit them 2 weeks before the cyclone and get some really amazing seed. And so, yeah, it's about building these connections and making sure that you keep seed wherever you are. And so, we're very passionate about that. And we like to teach and help people to house their seed all year round, just so that when the time comes for next season, that you're ready to go. You're not
Yeah.
having to go to again every 4 weeks. You're not having to go to your local. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said might have. You get that out, but you know what I mean.
I
You don't have
understand.
to buy your seedlings, and those seedlings that they will sell you 60% of the time are not from heritage strains, so that you can't reproduce them again if they go to seed. So it's kind of like a little catch-22
Yeah.
that the manipulator gets to dictate, even when we think we're growing
Yeah.
sustainably, we're unable to keep that seed for the next year. So that's why it's important to connect in and make networks and communities, because they will have heritage seed. And then you're able to swap in, swap out. We've got amazing stories. What comes with seed is stories, like we've got a beautiful white corn that comes from Ruatoria, and we've got a kamokamo that comes from Tūhoi, and we've got just beautiful watermelon that's grown from Kahunganu. And so with those seeds that are heritage, there's actually beautiful kōrero that you can teach your kids, you can teach your communities, and it becomes more than just food. So I'm a big advocate of heritage seed, and it's real what the government is doing around that.
Yeah.
And but here's a solution. There's actually a solution here. And growers are underground, but they're there.
Yeah.
And if
Just like seed. Seed is underground too. So
yeah, and I think we've put in 14 varieties of kumara in our
wow.
local project that we have right here, just on the basis to feed back the tipu to other iwi. And we were actually gifted from 4 different iwi for our garden. So it's actually just this beautiful reciprocal cycle of giving and sharing and blessing the land, I suppose. And as Māori, we've always said we want our land back, but I've always been passionate about, I want the knowledge back, how to
Yeah.
cultivate, how to live from it again. What did that look like? What does it taste like for our children? So
That's
yeah, that's
beautiful.
kind of.
I have a question here from someone that I'll just put up. And it says, I love what you're doing, yet I fear, which is their plan, how our planting is going to grow when they keep spraying chemicals from above. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I've actually been delving into researching around because we've got some underground comment. Like I'm not gonna even dismiss that because I've seen some crazy stuff in the last 10 years. So I'm into archaeological finds around. We have had underground kumara pits where our people, Māori people, have grown kumara underground, and so I've been looking
Wow.
into that, looking at restoring that in different areas for iwi, not only because that's part of us restoring our mana after colonization, but also there's some skill in there. If you can grow food underneath the ground without sunlight, then wow, I want to learn about that. So yeah, there's some strategies out there and things that are happening underground to cultivate our food. And once you get into it, if you're into growing, there is so
Yeah.
much.
And so
So,
many ways you can. Even in this
yeah,
very small space, you can grow so much. I mean, I know you said maybe not YouTube, but I have seen some incredible ways that you can grow tomatoes.
yeah. Oh no, right. And like I was speaking to the Israeli ambassador not long ago, and he was letting me know they have crazy technology around growing. Like they can make water out of the air. They can do all sorts in the desert and grow the most amazing fruits that don't have seeds in them, fruits that do have seeds. It's just phenomenal. So there's always much to learn in that area, and I would not rule out growing food underground at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, concern for you, I would definitely look into it and actually just give it a go, just trial and error. Um, some plants don't do much photosynthesis, so give it a go, because that's how I get by giving things a go. Mm.
I think so. You know, this is what you're doing as, just as a living. For those who work, I guess, 50, 40, 50 hours
Mm.
and are still concerned about what are your thoughts around, there are so many people with so many layers of fear that has
Mm.
come from the last, 2 or 3 years, or maybe even more than that. How do you how do you connect to their hearts and go, you don't have to be fearful. You are living the dream. I can see, and just absolutely where you grow your things, you're teaching your children. How do you help
Mm.
people who are working, 30, 40, 50 hours trying to make ends meet? How do you speak to their heart on this? How do we survive for the next, few years?
Yeah, I think two things. Firstly, like I have lived life. Like I've lived and worked for government agencies, and I lived in Wellington for a stretch of my life, and you know, success. I tried to live the success that society had told me and painted this picture of what it looked like, and what I always go back to is the kumara. So the kumara to me is a symbol of resilience because it comes from another environment, and it was brought here, and it was not only cultivated, it was cultivated really well. So it's not meant for our soil at all. That's why it only grows through the summer periods. But those two things for me help me to understand that I can actually live a life that society wants me to live and still not be successful, or I could actually navigate like my tupuna did with this kumara in their waka on a hope and a dream, get here and the soil's not even right, and actually develop all these amazing ways to still grow it anyway. And in some iwi there was volcanic rock that was used, there was geothermal heat that was used to produce the tipu, there were sandbanks, there's all sorts of different strategies that my tupuna used to cultivate and literally feed themselves. So I always fall back on those two things, and just remember, first of all, my own mindset. What does success look like? What do I want my kids to think success looks like? And then secondly, okay, I've got to navigate this. Get some inspiration for yourself. We all have ancestors that have navigated. Even my Scottish ancestors, their hopes and dreams were put on a boat, and they came here looking for a better life for their whānau. So we've all come from those historic, heroic stories, and just to dig deep and find that inspiration. As far as fear goes, it's really important to have a deep faith base. It's really important to know that you know who you are and where you're going. That helps with fear. Because with COVID coming and whatever else is going to come, you need to be on a solid foundation of faith with your whānau so it doesn't rock you. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, because I know there is a verse that I love to share is perfect love casts out all fear.
So good.
And we know who that perfect love is. We both have, yeah, and just speaking about your faith, how did you come to your faith? Like, why not? Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, well, it's been kōrero because we were brought up to love the Lord in our Māori community, Māori speaking, Māori talking, Māori walking, and Māori worshipping, and so it
Wow.
wasn't a separate thing. And so when I grew up and kind of went to live in Auckland, I realised there was denominations. First time I'd ever known there was a denominations
Yeah.
and different flavours of faith, and so I got to explore what that looked like. And for me, I feel that I was brought up into my faith, and because it was a normality, and I came from a very spiritual family from Te Ao Māori that navigated their spirituality with the Lord as Māori, and so it was normalized to have visions. It was normalized to pray.
Yeah.
It was normalized to worship. Not so much the way, but in a very reverent way to the Lord. And so yeah, my coming to faith is kind of boring like that. Not that I didn't trip over and do all the crazy stuff as well and find my feet. But yeah, that's kind of what I was born into. And for myself, even as a parent, that's actually one of my main focuses is to normalize faith. because it was for me as a child. And I think that comes from Ngāpuhi, where I come from. We were the ones who received the gospel in 1814, and we took it very seriously. And it's still, you can barely burp or fart in your marae without having a karakia, without, without, and we all pray to the one true God. And so I think it was just part of our upbringing. And we were very blessed. And I find now that I was very blessed to have that. Yeah.
Well, I just, I'm actually in awe of you, in the way that you've conducted, just even not just your love for your family and not just your love for your children, but for your community, to be able to, do this with your husband and your children and to teach them as you go. We've got a couple more minutes because I really want you to read that poem again, your poem.
Yeah.
But I just want to ask you, there's just some questions around women that I think we've lost in this generation. And is it a weakness to have empathy, to be gentle, to be kind, to show compassion, to be nurturing and maternal? Is it a weakness now because women are now working? Is it a weakness for us, even being submissive? Like that word, before the Lord, that is the gift that God's given us to be. And when you change language, it is no longer, what it was intended. But to be women, it's okay to be supportive. It's okay to love on our husbands, to love on our children and be maternal. Um, I just think we've lost so much of that for so long, and because women have had to go to work, they've had to give their children up to daycare, and and some of them have just felt the guilt where they've wanted to be at home to look after their babies, mortgages, things like that. But to bring it back to our gift as women, you know. Um, I just thought, what are your thoughts around that? And would you please say the poem again for one more time? I just love it so much, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it is such a gift to be a wahine. It is actually my joy. I had 4 sons before I had a daughter, and when she was born, I just cried because what a gift to be a nurturer. And I think it's unfortunate that some of my generation hasn't been raised to value that, hasn't been raised like that's a special thing. And regardless if you give birth or not, it is a very special thing to be a woman. And it is also a special thing to be looked after by a man. Like, I
Yes.
come from the most strong manawahine, I'm telling you, like Nana Whina is very strong. And she actually modeled to me how special it was to be a woman. And
Wow.
there are so many young girls who don't actually know how amazing they are just by being wahine. And it is not to take away from the gift of a man, because they are amazing too. But it's not my place to actually tell a man, how what his mum is. That's
Yeah.
a man. But I would definitely voice that for wahine, because there's no value where we're actually priceless, and the function of us as nurturers is actually priceless. We can nurture a whole nation if we wanted to. That's how deep our gift of nurture goes. And we have the ability, I've seen it time and time again, to just connect with the next generation in a way that no one else in the room can. I've seen children or people that have suffered so much trauma, and if you go into that room with a mother's heart,
Yes.
the door's open. So that's such a gift that we have. You are right about the masculinity of women in this time, and it does come from survival. And I've lived that. I've been through trauma. Becoming a widow at 28 with 4 kids, I had to become my protector for my children. I had to become the provider for my family.
Mm.
But even in the function, I knew that wasn't my function. I knew there was a better function. And so I'm not putting down single mamas, because I did it for years. But I actually love that I can be helper. I love that I can be provided for. I love being protected. And that is my deepest desire for every woman, to know that they are safe, to know that they don't have to struggle, and to know that they deserve actually to be provided and protected. So, yeah, of it in a non-colonial perspective, we will understand that it's not about anyone taking away our right to lead, because man, we're going to lead. We are leaders. We just actually know the easy way to lead, really.
Yeah. We do. Sorry. Would you finish us off with your poem?
Sure can, and I'll try not to shake and cry in this one.
No, you can.
Golly gosh.
Please, just be.
I'll just read it from this. Okay. He tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. A message burning in my heart for this generation. Te mana o te wahine doesn't come cheap. It's not a dress or makeup, a pronoun or an operation. We literally bleed 4,000 days of our lives for a new generation to be born. Whether it's used to give birth or not, he tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. Like many women, I've been blessed to carry children and bring them into the world. Sacrifice years of carrying life in my body and experience hours of pain to bring them into te ao marama. He tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. I've fed and healed my children from my body for many years of my life. So when I say you are not woman, I am not saying you are less or I am more. I am saying he tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. I am saying this gift that we have been given is not to be taken by you or anyone. He tapu, he tapu, he tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred, sacred, sacred. And men are sacred too. They carry tāne te waiora, the seed of all mankind. It is gifted and housed in womb. And what a gift. Men are provider and protector of new life. Koira te mana o te tāne. That is the honor of a man. We can't get it twisted because of personal projection of our sexual trauma on this generation. I am brave to speak, but someone has to be. Traumatic response will not raise mokopuna on my watch. He tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred. And so are the wombs of wahine of the future. The world can wear what it likes, call itself what it likes, but it will never take what is sacred to women. Koira te mana o te wahine. It is the honor I have as woman, and it is costly. He tapu tēnei whare tangata. This womb is sacred.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that with us. I just wanted to ask you if you wouldn't mind just closing us off in prayer. Thank you for that poem. Thank you. It's gonna be here and it's gonna be spoken and shared, I think, for generations to come. Your voice has been so needed at this time and so important. So keep writing, keep speaking. I really appreciate you.
Kia ora. Kei noi tātou. I hoa nā mano, anei o pononga, kei konei mātou he tuku whakawhetai ki a koe i tēnei wā. Kei a koe te mana, kei a koe te krorea o tēnei wā, kei a koe te mana o tēnei whenua o Aotearoa. E tuku e nei inoe ki a koe mō ngā uri e rongo ana ki tēnei, i tēnei wā. Tukuna tō aiotanga, tukuna tō rangimārie, tukuna tō wairua ki runga i tēnā, i tēnā, i tēnā. Inoe ana māse i roto e tō ingoa tapua i hukaraiti. Amene.
Amen. Thank you so much for being on tonight. Bless you. And we'll have a chat after this. So thank you, everybody.